The void had always been silent. For as long as the Shirathi Dominion could remember, the stars whispered nothing but darkness and cold. Their ancestors had long ago stitched a sprawling empire across the outer spiral arms of the galaxy, claiming countless worlds and bending them to their will. Yet no rival species ever dared to challenge them, not because the Shirathi were cruel or merciless, but because the void itself seemed empty at the edge of Dominion space, aboard the listening Outpost Kaltari 9. An array of sensors hummed softly, scanning the abyss. Commander Vresh stood before a wall of holoscreens, eyes narrowed in concentration as his technicians decoded the flood of data pouring in. He had been on duty for nearly a standard cycle, and the silence pressed on his nerves like a tightening noose. Still nothing, murmured one technician, tapping through star maps and sensor logs. No activity, no signals. Continue scanning. I want to know if there is any Change-Geni anomaly, Vresh ordered. His voice was calm, but deep inside, an ancient dread stirred. It was more than routine vigilance. Something felt ... off. Suddenly, one of the arrays flared with a spike. The screens flickered, and a series of repeating pulses blinked across the display, a signal unlike anything Vresh had seen before. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakably artificial. The pattern repeated at irregular intervals, weaving an intricate code. Commander, a transmission. I'm isolating it now, called the lead analyst. Vresh leaned forward, patch it through. Carefully. Static filled the chamber. Then a low-frequency hummer sequence of pulses in a rhythm that suggested intelligence, communication. The team scrambled to decode the signal, but as they worked, the station shuddered violently. Impact detected. Incoming. The alarms blared, red lights flooding the room. Vresh stumbled as the outpost rocked again, a blinding explosion rippling through the hull. Outside the viewport, a fragment of rock too massive to be a natural asteroid hurtled toward Kaltari at impossible speed. The station's shields flared in desperation but faltered. Brace for decompression. Vresh shouted, securing himself. The impact tore through the outer ring, sending shards of metal and glass cascading into the void. Communications flickered and died. The signal vanished. The last message sent from Kaltari 9 was a garbled distress call, barely intelligible before the station went dark. Back at the Dominion capital, the council convened in cold urgency. The massive chamber was filled with towering representatives from dozens of allied species. The High Chancellor, a towering figure draped in ceremonial robes, addressed the assembly with grim resolve. The silence we trusted has been broken. Our outpost is destroyed, and the source of the signal remains unknown. Murals depicting Dominion conquests loomed on the walls, now overshadowed by a new fear. This is no accident, Chancellor Verix declared. We face a force that dares to breach our borders. Our spies report nothing, our scouts see no fleet. We are blind and vulnerable. From the back, a young diplomat named Srel whispered to a colleague, could this be the fabled others we dismissed as myth? The Dominion scholars had always believed life beyond their borders was unlikely or primitive, but now, the unexplained strike and mysterious signal shattered those assumptions. Across the galaxy, on a blue-green world known as Earth, humanity's first true step into the stars was far less secret. The Terran Accord, a coalition forged from centuries of war and reconciliation, had broken through faster than light travel only decades prior. Their fleets patrolled nearby systems, probing the dark in search of other civilizations. At the Terran, deep space relay, Captain Alina Reyes stood staring at her console. The sensors had picked up faint echo signals, too faint to fully identify, but unmistakably alien in origin. A shiver of excitement and apprehension ran through her. "This might be the moment we've trained for," Reyes said quietly, eyes reflecting the starlit display. "First contact isn't a welcome party. It's a test, and we'll be ready." Back at the Dominion War Council, an emergency fleet was assembled. Sleek warships, bristling with railguns and missile pods, set to launch into the blackness where Caltarinine was lost as the fleet departed. The emptiness of space swallowed their hopes and fears alike. No one knew who had sent the signal, or why they had attacked. But the silence that had ruled the stars for so long was finally broken, and somewhere, deep in the darkness, the machines aboard the human dreadnoughts powered up ready to remind the galaxy that humanity had arrived. The Shirathi fleet cut through the star-speckled void like a blade drawn from centuries of war. Their capital ships, sleek and dark as obsidian, advanced toward the coordinates where Caltarinine had last transmitted its distress signal, silent but for the faint hum of engines and the whisper of anxious orders over come channels. The fleet carried the weight of an empire's pride and its fears. Fleet Commander Vesh, newly promoted after the loss of Kaltari 9, stood on the bridge of the flagship Virgil, his gaze fixed on the hollow map pulsing before him. "Sensors still detect nothing," reported Lieutenant Arnak, his voice tight. "No signs of hostile ships, no debris fields beyond the impact site. It's as if the station simply vanished." Vresh frowned. The kinetic strike was too precise for an accident. "We've faced pirates, but this was surgical." The Dominion's pride was wounded, and fear began to breed in its depths. Back on the capital world, the High Chancellor convened a second emergency session. The chamber thrummed with tension as ambassadors and generals debated in heated whispers. "Without information, we fly blind," growled General Cathol, his 4 eyes burning with frustration. "We must respond with overwhelming force. Crush whatever dares to challenge us." The Chancellor shook his head. "Patience. We do not know their strength or intent. We risk our entire border if we commit rashly." A sharp voice cut through the murmurs. "We are divided. Our spies find no trace of this enemy's fleet, yet they strike with weapons unknown, with precision." From a dark corner, the young diplomat Srel stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "The silence may be our greatest enemy. Perhaps this unknown power watches us, waiting. We must prepare, but not provoke war without understanding." The room fell quiet, but the debate was far from over. Thousands of light years away, the Terran fleet moved quietly but purposefully through. The void their ships were vast, armored dreadnoughts bristling with weaponry no Dominion ship had ever seen. Beneath their cold steel exteriors were minds, sharp as razors, artificial intelligences, designed to anticipate and counter threats with ruthless efficiency. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge of the flagship Aegis of Sol. Her expression, steely sensor sweep, shows no Dominion activity near the border. Her tactical officer reported. "They've been cautious since the Kaltari strike, possibly unaware we're watching." Reyes nodded. "Good. We'll use their uncertainty. The moment they believe they face an unknown enemy, their fear will become our advantage." Her gaze turned to the fleet arrayed behind her, each ship ready to ignite the forge of war if needed. "This is not a conquest mission," she reminded her crew. "We came to ensure humanity's survival. And if that means reminding the galaxy, who rules the stars, So be it. Back in Dominion space, unsettling reports began to filter in from border systems. Minor outposts were found abandoned. Patrol ships reported strange disruptions in communications and power grids. Some worlds whispered of shadowy figures moving beneath the surface, stirring unrest among the vassal populations. Subversion, whispered an intelligence officer. Alien technology we've never seen. Insurgent tactics. In a secret meeting held far from prying eyes, Srel met with representatives of several enslaved species, the Karolith, the Vaughn, and the Yasharai. Each bore scars of dominion. Oppression, each burned with hope at the rumors of a new power rising in the stars. Earth calls us not to submission, but to alliance, Srel said, her voice low but filled with conviction. Their dreadnoughts are not tools of empire. They are shields for the oppressed. The gathered leaders exchanged glances, uncertain yet intrigued. On board the Aegis of Soul, the human crew watched Dominion transmissions intercepted on encrypted channels. The alien pride was cracking under pressure. Commander Reyes, you should see this, said Lieutenant May, the communications officer. The Shirathi are panicked. They call us the Reckoning in their broadcasts. Reyes smiled grimly. Good. Let them fear what they don't understand. Fear is a powerful weapon. The humans had studied the Dominion's culture, their history filled with conquests and rigid hierarchy. But it was their arrogance that made them vulnerable, the belief in their solitude, their invincibility. As the days turned into weeks, the invisible war stretched across the void. Shirathi spies vanished without trace. Hidden sabotage crippled supply lines. In the darkness, a quiet rebellion blossomed. One night, deep within a Dominion research station on the planet Arkelthos, a young Shirathi officer named Kalon made a choice that would shift the tides. He had long questioned the Council's ruthless tactics and their blind devotion to tradition. Secretly, he had been in contact with human operatives, smuggling information and technology. Tonight, he sent a transmission that would expose the Dominion's vulnerabilities and pave the way for the inevitable storm. Outside, the stars remained, indifferent, watching silently as the first cracks formed in the Dominion's armor. The universe was no longer silent. Something had stirred, and humanity was ready to answer. The void shattered in an instant. The Shirathi Dominion's fleet was still searching, scanning the dark spaces where the Koltari 9 outpost had fallen silent. Their massive capital ships drifted cautiously near a system at the border of their territory, a system marked only by cold rocks and silent suns. Then the stars exploded. Without warning, the Terran 5th Expeditionary Fleet slipped through a newly constructed jump gate, arriving with impossible speed and devastating force. Their Dreadnoughts, monolithic vessels armed with weapons that dwarfed anything the Dominion had ever seen, blazed into the system like avenging gods. On the bridge of the Virgil, Commander Vresh froze as the first salvo struck. Enemy. Ships detected. Target lock. Lieutenant Arnak's voice cracked. The first railgun blast tore through the Shirathi forward shield, a cascade of superheated metal vaporizing sections of the hull. Explosions blossomed across the fleet as human drones swarmed in tight formation, their AI-guided tactics outmaneuvering the Dominion's slower, heavier ships. The Shirathi scrambled to respond, launching missile volleys and plasma bursts, but it was no use. Return fire, Vresh barked, but his fleet was already faltering. Far away, on the flagship Aegis of Soul, Captain Alina Reyes stood calm amid the storm of battle. Focus on the enemy command vessel, she ordered. We will break their morale by shattering their leadership. Her voice was steady as dreadnoughts thundered their mighty guns. Railguns the size of mountains fired hollow shells that pierced through the void with deadly precision. Swarms of microdrones, each smaller than a fist, darted among the Shirathi fleet, disabling systems and sowing chaos. Shields down on the Virgil, crackled the communications officer. The mighty flagship shuddered as multiple hits slammed into its hull. Fires broke out in the engineering decks, and the crew scrambled to contain the damage. "Keep firing," Vresh shouted, desperation. Sharpening his tone, "We cannot let them push us back." But the humans pressed on, relentless and brutal. For every ship the Dominion lost, another Terran dreadnought moved forward like a juggernaut. The Shirathi's centuries of experience were no match for the raw firepower and unyielding will of humanity. As the battle raged, the human fleet broadcast a message on all frequencies, clear, unyielding. "You believed yourselves alone. You were wrong. We are the reckoning." The words echoed across the void, a declaration that shattered centuries of Dominion certainty. Back on the Virgil, the message was met with stunned silence. Commander Vresh's many eyes scanned the stars in disbelief. "Who are these?" "Humans," he whispered. "What god is this that brings thunder in the silence?" The battle was over in hours, not days. The Shirathi fleet lay in ruins, drifting corpses of ships burned and shattered across the stars. Survivors scrambled to retreat, but many vessels simply exploded, caught in the relentless human pursuit. On the ground, worlds that had never known true war trembled at the news. The Dominion's grip on their outer systems began to loosen, the illusion of invincibility shattered by a single, overwhelming strike in the aftermath. Captain Reyes convened her officers aboard the Aegis of Sol. "We have shown them our strength," she said quietly, eyes steady. "But this is only the beginning. They will come back stronger. We must prepare not just to fight, but to win their loyalty." Her tactical officer nodded. "The Dominion is fractured already. Vassal species are contacting us. The time to build alliances is now." "Good," Reyes replied. "The galaxy is watching. We will not be conquerors. We will be protectors." Reminders. Far across the Dominion capital, the council reeled. High Chancellor Verix paced before the assembly, his usually stoic features cracked with worry. "Our borders bleed. Our enemies are no longer shadows," he said. "This new power, humanity, they wield technology beyond our understanding." Surel stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "They are not invincible," she insisted. "Their strength comes from their unity and their history. If we fracture from within, we may survive, but only if we adapt." The council was divided. Some called for retaliation at all costs. Others whispered of peace in secret. The human fleet deployed, emissaries to the oppressed species within the Dominion. They came bearing gifts, technology, sanctuary, and the promise of a future not ruled by fear. Among the freed was Kalon, the Shirathi officer who had betrayed his own people. He stood with the humans, his eyes filled with both regret and hope. "We were blinded by pride," Kalon admitted. "They showed us the truth that survival belongs to those who can change." The stars no longer whispered silence. They screamed with the thunder of dreadnoughts. And humanity had arrived. The echoes of the human assault reverberated across the Dominion like a seismic shock, shaking the foundations of an empire built on centuries of unchallenged rule on the throne world of Shirathis Prime. The High Council convened beneath towering obsidian pillars etched with the history of conquest. The chamber buzzed with unrest, the air thick with whispers of fear and anger. High Chancellor Verix sat rigid, his many eyes scanning the faces of his advisors. The recent defeat was more than a military setback, was a challenge to their entire identity. "We have always been the masters of this region," he intoned, "but the humans have proven their might. They strike with speed, with power, and worse, with resolve." General Cathal slammed a clawed fist onto the council table. "Our fleets must be reinforced. We cannot show weakness to our subjects." "But our forces are spread thin," countered Advisor Cyril, her voice steady. "The outer systems whisper of rebellion. Our vassals doubt us. Far from the grandeur of the capital, in the shadowed underworld of the mining colony, the seeds of revolt bloomed among the enslaved Karilith workers. Hardened by years of exploitation, a secret meeting gathered in a cavern lit only by flickering bioluminescent fungi. "We will no longer serve the Sharathi," declared Arthel, a fierce Karilith leader whose scars told tales of countless battles. "The humans bring hope, not conquest, but freedom." His followers nodded, eyes shining with a mix of fear and determination. "Earth's dreadnoughts destroyed the Dominion fleet," Arthel continued. "If they come to our aid, we might rise. If not, we will take our fate into our own hands." Back on Sharothis Prime, Chancellor Verix studied intelligence reports that confirmed his worst fears. Multiple systems were in open revolt or covert sabotage. Sorel approached him quietly. "Your Excellency, the Dominion is fracturing faster than we can respond. We risk losing not just territory, but the loyalty of our people." Verix's expression darkened. "What do you propose?" "An alliance with the humans," she said. "Not as enemies, but as partners. Offer them peace, share power. It may be our only chance." The room erupted in outrage. "To submit to humans," sneered General Cathal. "Better to die with honor than live in disgrace." Verix raised his voice. "And yet, to survive, we must be flexible. This empire will either evolve or perish." On the Terran flagship Aegis of Sol, Captain Alina Reyes received envoys from freed alien factions Karilith Fawn, Yashar each carrying their own histories of pain and hope. "We do not come as conquerors," Reyes told them. "We offer a new way, a coalition where no species dominates another, where strength is used to protect, not enslave." The aliens listened carefully, some skeptical, others eager. "Your technology saved us," Arthel told Reyes, "but we will not be pawns. We want partnership, equality." Reyes nodded. "That is our promise. Together, we will rebuild a galaxy where freedom is not a dream, but a right." Meanwhile, hidden beneath the surface of Dominion society, more Sharathi began to question the old ways. Kalen, the former Dominion officer turned human ally, worked tirelessly to unite factions within the Dominion willing to embrace change. During a covert meeting in the ruins of a destroyed outpost, Kalen addressed a group of dissidents. "The Dominion's fall is not the end," he said. "It is a chance to forge something new, stronger, wiser. We cannot hold on to pride while the galaxy moves forward without us." His words sparked a fragile hope, yet not all embraced this new dawn. In the shadows, loyalist factions conspired to strike back, plotting sabotage and assassination to destabilize the fragile peace. Whispers of civil war crept through the corridors of power, threatening to engulf the entire Dominion. Captain Reyes understood the fragile balance. The victory of human dreadnoughts was not enough. "We must build bridges," she told her officers. Because if the Dominion falls into chaos, the entire region will suffer. Her gaze hardened, and chaos is the enemy we cannot defeat with guns. The stars, once silent witnesses to an empire's dominance, now shone on a galaxy in turmoil. The Shirathi Dominion was fracturing, and humanity stood at the crossroads, champion of a new order, or unwitting herald of endless war. The whispers of revolt that had simmered in the outer territories now roared into open defiance. The once mighty Shirathi Dominion found itself cleaved from within by the very fractures the humans' arrival had exposed. On the desert world of Velenor, under the oppressive twin suns, the Karalith insurgency grew stronger. Arthur stood atop a rocky outcrop overlooking the sprawling mining complex. His ragtag army of freedom fighters, armed with scavenged weapons and newly acquired human tech, prepared for the strike that would shake the Dominion's grip. "The time has come," Arthur said, his voice steady and commanding. "Tonight, we take back what was stolen. Tonight, we become free." Meanwhile, aboard the Virgil, Commander Vresh grappled with the rapid collapse of order within the Dominion. The loss at the border was only the beginning. Reports of insurrections and sabotage flooded in daily. His fleet, once a symbol of Dominion power, now struggled to maintain control over fracturing worlds. Vresh's mind churned with frustration. "We fight enemies outside and within," he muttered to his trusted lieutenant. "But who is the true enemy now?" In the shadows of Shirathis Prime, loyalists to the old regime moved with deadly intent. Assassination squads targeted dissidents, striking at any who dared speak of peace or alliance with humanity. Sorel, the diplomat who had dared to propose compromise, narrowly escaped an attempt on her life. Wounded but alive, she retreated to a hidden sanctuary beneath the city, where she convened with other reformers. "We must not let fear bind us," she urged. "If we are to save the Dominion, it will be through unity and change." Her words kindled hope, but also painted a target on her back. On the human side, Captain Alina Reyes and her command team coordinated with newly allied alien factions, planning to support the uprising in key Dominion worlds. "This rebellion is our chance to break the old chains," Reyes said during a strategic briefing. "But we must be cautious. If the Dominion falls into chaos, the entire region risks becoming a battleground for years to come." Her second-in-command, Commander Lee, nodded. "We'll deploy advisors and supply lines to the rebels, but avoid direct combat. Let the oppressed fight for their own freedom." As night fell on Velenor, the rebellion launched its assault. Explosions rocked the mining facilities as Karalith fighters infiltrated the heavily guarded complexes. Human drones flew overhead, providing reconnaissance and targeting support. Inside the Dominion's command center, panic spread. "Security breached," yelled the officer in charge. "Rebels have seized the eastern control tower." Varesh received the news aboard the Virgil with grim resolve. "Deploy reinforcements. We cannot let this rebellion spread." But even as Dominion troops rushed to contain the uprising, the spark had already ignited a wider fire. On a distant mining outpost, Shirathi soldiers, loyal to the rebellion, rose against their commanders, seizing weapons and broadcasting calls for solidarity across the Dominion. Kalen, the former Dominion officer turned human ally, coordinated communications between rebel cells. "Unity is our greatest weapon," he told his followers. "Together, we will topple the old order." His voice carried across stolen frequencies, reaching ears that had long been silenced by fear. The High Council on Sharuthis Prime was thrown into turmoil. The once solid foundation of power now teetered on the edge of collapse. Order must be restored, General Cathor shouted during a furious meeting. We must crush the rebellion or lose everything. Chancellor Verix, weary but resolute, responded, If we crush the rebellion with force alone, we doom the Dominion to endless war. We must seek a new path, one of compromise. Cathor's eyes blazed with fury. Compromise is surrender. The room erupted in shouting in the midst of chaos. Captain Reyes received a transmission from Sorel, smuggled out through rebel networks. We want peace, Sorel's message said. Help us build a future where all can thrive. Reyes smiled grimly. Then we fight for that future. But the fight will be long and the cost high. As the stars blazed overhead, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. The Dominion fractured. The rebellion roared, and humanity's dreadnoughts waited patiently in the darkness. The spark had been lit, and soon the flames would consume all. The fires of rebellion swept across Dominion space like wildfire. Worlds that had once bowed under the yoke of the Shirathi Dominion now erupted in open revolt, their populations fueled by hope and desperation. The galaxy, once silent under Dominion rule, now echoed with the clamor of freedom's fight. On the war-torn world of Arkelthus, a key Dominion supply hub, the rebellion's advance reached a decisive moment. Karolith insurgents, bolstered by human advisors and weapons, launched a coordinated strike against the Dominion's fortified command center. The ground trembled beneath the thunderous roar of plasma cannons and the whine of assault rifles. Arthur, the fierce Karolith leader, crouched behind a shattered wall, issuing orders through a link. Focus fire on the eastern barricades. Human drone squads, disable their artillery. We cannot let them regroup. The Dominion defenders fought back with brutal efficiency, but their morale was cracking. Reports of human dreadnoughts imposing blockades in orbit discouraged reinforcements from reaching the embattled planet. Aboard the Virgil, Commander Vresh watched the deteriorating situation with grim determination. The loss of Arkelthus would sever vital supply lines and embolden rebels across the sector. Deploy the Valkyrie squads, he ordered. Their heavy armor and shock tactics will crush the insurgents. Yet even as reinforcements prepared to deploy, the commander's tactical officer interrupted. Commander, incoming transmission from an unknown source. It's encrypted, but marked with human symbols. Vresh hesitated before ordering the message opened. The holographic image of Captain Elena Reyes flickered into view. Her voice was calm but resolute. Commander Vresh, the era of domination is over. Surrender the occupied worlds peacefully, and the bloodshed will end. Resist, and the tide will turn against you completely. The message vanished, leaving silence on the bridge. Vresh's claws clenched. They think this is a game, but we will show them the true meaning of power. In the orbital command center of the Aegis of Sol, Reyes coordinated the fleet's support for the ground campaign. We hold Arkelthos together, she told her officers. The rebellion needs this victory. Her tactical officer nodded. The Dominion's forces are stretched thin. Their morale is low. If we push now, we might break their will. Reyes's eyes hardened. Then push we shall. Back on Shirathis Prime, political turmoil worsened. The High Council's divisions deepened, with some factions calling for brutal crackdowns, others desperate for negotiation. Srel worked tirelessly to broker fragile ceasefires and alliances with moderate Dominion leaders who feared the empires. Collapsed at a secret summit, she met with General Cathor. His face was grim. This rebellion grows beyond control, Cathal admitted. Perhaps your humans have changed the balance irreversibly, Cyril replied. Change is inevitable. The question is, will we embrace it or be destroyed by it? On Arkathos, the final assault on the Dominion Command Center began. Karolith fighters surged forward, backed by precise fire from human drone squads and sniper teams. Inside, Dominion officers scrambled to mount a defense, but the walls were breached. Arthur led the charge through the corridors, his blade flashing. In the dim light, the command center fell. The victory sent shockwaves through the sector. Elsewhere, Kalon coordinated intelligence operations, using his insider knowledge to disrupt Dominion supply chains and communications. His actions proved critical in fracturing Dominion defenses and enabling rebel advances. He watched the starfield from a rebel outpost, the weight of his choices heavy on his shoulders. This is not just war, he murmured. It is the birth of a new era. The Dominion's grip on its empire was slipping fast. Commander Vresh prepared a desperate counterattack, rallying remaining loyalist forces for a final stand. But even he knew the tide was turning. The humans and their allies had ignited a flame that could not be extinguished. Captain Rhea stood on the bridge of the Aegis of Sol, watching as the rebel flag was raised over Arkathos. Today we won more than a battle, she said quietly. We won a future. Her crew cheered, but the captain's gaze was distant. This war is far from over, but the tide has turned. The stars burned bright with the fires of rebellion and hope. The galaxy would never be the same. The fragile peace forged in the fires of rebellion was fragile as glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Captain Alina Reyes stared at the holomap flickering on the bridge of the Aegis of Sol. The rebellion's victories had reshaped the frontier, but whispers of treachery unsettled her crew. Reports indicate increased sabotage within our allied territories, said Commander Lee. Several key supply routes have been compromised. Reyes frowned. Sabotage? By whom? Unknown, Lee replied grimly. Could be loyalist Shirathi cells, or factions among the rebels dissatisfied with human involvement. Meanwhile, deep beneath the towering spires of Shirathis Prime, shadows moved unseen. Sorel, wounded but unbroken, slipped through the labyrinthine corridors of the rebel safe house. Her guarded expression belied the storm raging inside her. The cost of peace was proving heavier than she'd imagined. We cannot trust everyone, a voice hissed from the darkness. Sorel turned sharply. Kalon emerged from the shadows, his face grave. There are traitors within our ranks, Kalon warned. Loyalists who would see this rebellion crushed from within. Sorel nodded. We must root them out before they destroy everything. We've built back aboard the Virgil. Commander Vresh S. Patience snapped. Send the covert units, he ordered. If the humans think they can win through rebellion and diplomacy, they are fools. His operatives specialized in sabotage and assassination, silent hunters moving like ghosts. Begin with the rebel supply depots. Vresh commanded. Strike where it hurts most. In the rebel-controlled sector of Velenor, a sudden explosion tore through the main supply hub. Chaos erupted as fires spread. Weapons and vital supplies were destroyed. Arthur stormed through the burning wreckage, fury blazing in his eyes. This is no accident, he growled. This is sabotage. His second in command approached, voice low. Some suspect spies. Others fear the Dominion still controls hidden networks. Arthur clenched his fists. We will find the traitors. No one threatens our freedom. Captain Reyes convened an emergency council. "We face enemies without hand within," she said. "We must strengthen internal security. Trust is fragile, but necessary." Commander Lee looked thoughtful. "I recommend deploying counterintelligence teams alongside the rebels. We need eyes everywhere." Reyes nodded. "Do it, and keep me informed. No secret is too small." Undercover investigations revealed a web of betrayal. Some rebel leaders were compromised, their loyalties bought by promises from Dominion loyalists. Others were radical extremists who viewed humanity as occupiers, intent on sabotaging peace. And Kalen led daring raids to capture these traitors. But each capture revealed deeper rot. "We are fighting shadows," Kalen lamented. "Our own people." On the bridge of the Aegis of Sol, Reyes stared at incoming reports of attacks on rebel outposts, ambushes that seemed coordinated to be coincidence. "The loyalists are desperate," she said. "They know their time is running out." Meanwhile, in a secret chamber beneath Sharathis Prime, General Kytho convened with his most loyal conspirators. "The rebellion crumbles, but we have one final weapon," he hissed. "A strike against the human fleet, one that will shatter their command and turn the tide." His eyes gleamed with fanatic determination. The Aegis of Sol received a chilling transmission just before dawn. "This is High Chancellor Verix." The voice crackled. "You may have won battles, but the Dominion will not fall. Prepare for a reckoning." Reyes's jaw tightened. "They're planning something." As shadows lengthened across the stars, the galaxy stood on the brink of chaos. Betrayal threatened to undo fragile alliances, and the war for the future was entering its darkest hour. The stars hung heavy with tension as the human fleet prepared for the Dominion's final strike. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge of the Aegis of Sol, eyes locked on the glowing sensors ahead. The silence was suffocating, the calm before the storm. The Dominion's message had been clear. They would not surrender quietly. "We're picking up multiple fleets converging," the tactical officer reported. "Large vessels, heavily armed. They're coming for us." Rhea's voice was steady, but inside, a fire burned fierce. "All hands, prepare for battle stations. This is what we've been training for." Across the void, the Dominion's fleet surged forward, a tidal wave of black ships bristling with weapons. Led by the imposing flagship Virgil, Commander Vresh stood on his bridge, resolute and unyielding. "For too long we have tolerated rebellion and humiliation," Vresh declared, voice echoing through the command chamber. "Tonight we crush the insurrection and restore the Dominion's glory." On the ground, the rebels braced for impact. Arthur marshaled his forces, preparing for the inevitable assault on Velinor. Beside him stood Srel and Kalen, their faces a mixture of hope and grim determination. "Whatever happens," Srel said, "this rebellion is bigger than any one battle. We fight for freedom, and we will not back down." The battle erupted with ferocious intensity. Plasma bolts tore through the void as the human fleet and Dominion vessels clashed in a deadly dance of destruction. The Aegis of Sol maneuvered with precision, its dreadnought cannons roaring. "Target the Virgil," Reyes ordered. "Concentrate fire on their flagship." The Virgil responded with brutal counterattacks, but human tactics and technology held the advantage. Fighters swarmed, capital ships exchanged volleys, and in the chaos, small human commando teams slipped into Dominion vessels, sabotaging critical systems. Back on Valona, the ground battle mirrored the fury in space. Rebel fighters pushed against Dominion troops, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that the fleet above was holding firm. Arthur led a desperate charge, cutting through the Dominion's last lines of defense. Explosions shook the barren landscape as victory drew near. In the heart of the battle, a devastating blast rocked the Aegis of Sol. Damage alarms blared. Shields down to 30%. The tactical officer warned. Enemy capital ship launching heavy plasma. Reyes gritted her teeth. Divert all power to forward shields. We can't lose this fight. The tide turned when a squadron of rebel ships, piloted by defected Dominion officers, infiltrated the enemy's rear and crippled their command network. Confusion spread like wildfire through the Dominion ranks. Commander Vresh's face tightened. Fall back to secondary formations. Regroup and counterattack. But it was too late. With one final, coordinated barrage, the human fleet shattered the Virgil Est defenses. The massive flagship exploded in a cascade of fire and debris. The Dominion fleet faltered and then retreated into the darkness. Their power-broken victory was hard-won and costly. Captain Reyes surveyed the aftermath, her heart heavy with the price paid. CRL report. Reyes requested overcome. Rebel forces on Velanor have secured the planet, CRL replied. Dominion loyalists either captured or fled. This marks a turning point. Kalon joined the channel, voice quiet but resolute. The old empire is broken. Now we build something new. In the council chambers of the newly liberated worlds, representatives from humans and alien factions gathered. The promise of peace and partnership was no longer a dream but a tangible goal. Alina Reyes addressed the assembly. We fought to end oppression, to give voice to the silenced. Now it is our duty to protect that freedom. The galaxy, once dominated by fear and tyranny, took its first steps toward a future forged in unity and hope. Beneath the stars, the dreadnoughts that had stormed in as conquerors now stood as guardians of a new dawn.